The revenue forecast released later this morning will project somewhat greater revenues in the future for the state. That reflects recent and expected improvements in the Indiana economy, coupled with a disciplined dividend from years of careful spending control. This forecast, if it proves accurate, means that the state will have a little larger margin of safety fiscally looking ahead. This encouraging news is no reason to abandon or relax our discipline. Everyone remembers how erroneous most recent forecasts have been, and there are many reasons to worry that even today's anemic economic growth could slow down rather than accelerate. Nonetheless, the prospects as we see them hold sufficient promise. In concert with the legislative leadership, I have decided to recommend that the upcoming budget be augmented by the addition of $150 million for K-12 education, with about a quarter of that being used to complete the extension of full-day kindergarten to every school district in the state. Another smaller fund will provide new dollars to pay our best teachers more in the new system that rewards performance, not seniority. Having brought full-day kindergarten to roughly 3/4 of our 5-year-olds over the last few years, I've been eager to finish that job, and I thank those legislators, particularly these two leaders, whose support in restraining spending in other areas than K-12 has created the disciplined dividend that now makes it possible. I just want to thank, again, Senator Long, Speaker Bosma, their leadership teams. The budget as it's shaping up is a very solid and strong one for Indiana, and the prospect of somewhat greater revenues to come, I think, means that we can improve it further. I've given you, someone has, two pieces of paper that I think are important for your readers and listeners to understand. Already, before this year's budget, Indiana devotes a higher percentage of its state spending to K-12 education than any state in America. And that gap, I suppose, will widen because, as you'll see on the other piece of paper, the map, at this point, we're the only state proposing, that I know of, proposing to increase K-12. Many other states are proposing very deep cuts, way beyond anything we've seen in Indiana. So we think this was the right thing to do, and the proposals we're making have been very carefully crafted together with Dave and Brian and their fiscal leadership, and we're very serious about seeing them enacted.
Of the new money coming in, are you saying that all of it will go to education, or will some of it go to reserves?
Well, this is money that might come in. These are only projections, of course, but we think we have enough confidence in them that the only new spending we're recommending is for K-12 education. $150 million, about a quarter of that, or just a little more, will extend full-day kindergarten to the remaining about 1/4 of our 5-year-olds don't have access to it today. A smaller fund of between $5 and $10 million, the legislature hasn't picked the number yet, will be provided to those districts whose new merit performance assessment plans do include paying the best teachers more. We will help them do that. That leaves 2/3 or more of that, of the 150, that will go into the funding formula for whatever purposes the schools need.
Hey, before we do questions, we may just look like face men up here to add to the governor. I think Senator Long's going to say something, and I will, and then maybe we'll turn it over to questions.
Well, I'll be very brief. I agree with the governor that I think the use of this, what we'll call a dividend, the improved economy, is great news, and the prudent use of that money is to K through 12. In a year, really, where our focus is on educational reform and improvement, extending some of this money to the completion of the full-day K rollout to all the 5-year-olds in Indiana is really consistent with what we're trying to do in education and totally appropriate. Early childhood education is a critical component of the education of our young people. Full-day K is very important part of that, and I'm excited to see this roll out and totally support it. I do agree with the governor. I'll make this last comment that it's also important that we maintain our focus on the fact that it's a turbulent world out there, that we don't know what the impact of a lot of the global activity today will have on the Indiana economy in the coming months and the years in our biennial budget period. So it's important that we keep our eye on the ball and keep us, whatever additional revenues come in, if they do, tucked away in a surplus. But a portion of that, to the extent it's going to be spent, should be spent on K-12. I totally support that. I know the speaker does well. I know he'll address that right now. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Governor. As we were discussing our own release on this announcement this morning, I suggested it open with, in a rare joint appearance. As I think about the last 6.5 years of leadership opportunities together, there have been very few times when Republican leaders have stood together with the governor and said, this is where we are on a key issue. We started, all of us, started this session with two key budget goals. First, budget integrity, a budget without a tax increase on Hoosiers, yet meeting our critical needs. And second, right behind that, a key commitment to funding K-12 education, which we know is a key economic and social indicator for our future. Our team has had a real commitment to the governor's commitment to fund early education opportunities. And as we discussed the possibility that there might be projected additional funds, we came back to our core values, fiscal integrity and K-12 education. And we fully support the governor's recommendation of putting a good deal of this in reserve to protect Hoosier taxpayers for the future, and taking a great part of it and putting it right where it needs to be in K-12 education, with the emphasis on early learning education especially. So with that.
In case you didn't bring your scorecard, he's the post player, he's the power forward, and I'm the point guard.
Is 150, I think what Jim was trying to get at earlier was, is $150,000, is that the amount we're going to see in the forecast? It's $150 million. Is that the amount?
No, you'll see something more than that.
So how much will, so the rest of it, I guess, will be dedicated to the balance?
We'll see if there is a rest of it. If we will not spend it. We don't believe in spending money we might have. We think there's a really good chance that at least 150 will show up. And so,
of the 150 that schools can start planning to have full-day kindergarten in the fall semester?
yeah, I think so. I think when you see the forecast, you'll see that this is prudent and leaves a lot of room for error. In the event that the economy turns back down, as some are saying, you'll see a lot of cautionary notes in the economic presentation that goes into this forecast. I think there's plenty of margin of safety that at least 150 ought to be generated beyond what was expected.
Is this an effort on your part to keep a campaign promise?
You could say that. I've been talking about full-day kindergarten a long time. With the help of the legislature, we can show you the figures. Indiana took a huge leap forward starting in about 2007. But the recession brought it to a screeching halt. We got to about 75% of our kids in districts that offer it. And this will complete the job, so yes. But I'm hardly the only one. These fellows have been advocates of full-day K for a long time, too.
And so will full-day K then be required?
No, not mandatory. I've never thought it should be. Now, where it's available, where kindergarten's available, almost 100% of families choose it. But we've never taken the position that they should be made to choose it. We've taken the position that it ought to be universally available and in a full-day form. And now we'll be able to do that.
So districts would be required to offer it.
I don't know a district that doesn't want to offer it. I think the recognition, the things Dave and Brian just talked about of the value of earlier learning is pretty well universal.
Would the school have an option to, if they didn't want to offer full-day K, to use that money elsewhere?
No, the way that, no, there's a fund that the superintendent administers, which they get money anyway that can be used for kindergartners, but it's only half the amount of an older student, and we've been topping that up And that fund was only able to cover about 3/4 of the district, now be able to cover all the districts.
And why prescribe that this is how this money be used? You've kind of been an advocate of local control. Why not give schools the money and let them decide whether they need it more for remediation?
Yeah, well, more than about 2/3 is going to be no strings money. But full-day kindergarten is not obviously a new commitment. It's one we're trying to complete. And I think it has broad support across the education spectrum. And so I'll be surprised if this isn't really welcomed. But there are all kinds of ways in which the legislature, the department, decide through grants or other specific programs to address specific needs. We have a lot of money that's absolutely tied to special needs children, for instance.
Is the $150 million, is that the amount over the 2-year budget?
Yes.
Or-
Uh-huh.
How would you say this funding fits in with the larger picture of education and how you guys are trying to accomplish?
I would say completing full-day kindergarten is very consistent with a policy of trying to do more at the earlier ages. And the new fund to pay our best teachers more clearly fits with the reforms we hope are on the brink of bringing to Indiana. A reform that Secretary Duncan will be in town supporting today. That teachers should be rewarded based on the quality and the excellence of their teaching, not simply seniority or paper credentials. And to provide some funds to encourage and assist districts that want to pay the best teachers more is, I think, a great idea that came from the legislators and that we embrace.
And so do you have any sense of how many teachers could see a merit raise as a result of the amount of money that you're talking about?
Well, thousands, but remember that the new evaluation system is not top-down, it is bottom-up, so it'll depend on what kind of systems the districts devise. I hope that all of them will not only begin evaluating teachers meaningfully and evaluating teachers based on their performance as it is observed in the classroom or is reflected in how much their kids grow academically, but I hope they'll also want to pay the best teachers more, and this will encourage that and help them do it.
So it's like our own little race to the top fund. They'll have
You know, that's
to come up with their system and apply to the Department of Education and they'll award it.
yes, that's very important to understand. There's been an awful lot of misunderstanding about the proposals that the legislature is working on, but that's one. Yes, the evaluation plans are going to be district by district, bottom up, and the department will simply have a look at them to make sure they're not phony, that they're real. But again, I hope that all of them will want to join in not just protecting the best teachers, but rewarding them, and that could be thousands, depending on the size of the awards and how many in a given district are going to be rated in the top category.
Mr. Speaker, your caucus, I was wondering how your caucus has reacted to this idea. Was there any concern about spending $150 million of this money rather than putting it toward the balance?
Well, I can tell you that the request to emphasize the early learning opportunity actually originated with our team. The request for the additional funds for the teacher excellence initiated in the Senate. We all got together to have a discussion about how we, if there were additional funds, how we would want to prioritize them and discover we were all on exactly the same page. So our caucus will be thrilled about this. I can tell you, as we've talked about some of the education reform issues, many folks have said, why aren't we focusing on early learning opportunities as well? And that piqued our interest in this from the start throughout the session, and we had hoped that we would have sufficient finances to complete the program begun in 2005, and this is a great announcement that we do.
Anybody else?
Governor, on another topic.
Maybe. We do want to kind of concentrate on this, but you can try.
Okay, well, there's a few remaining local government bills
Yeah.
out there, and they're largely kind of tinkering around on the edges. They're not the big reforms that you've pushed in years, and I just wondered
Well, I'm disappointed, but that's not new in this area, and we're just going to have to keep working. The reason is a perfectly foreseeable one. The benefits of this reform are spread over every taxpayer and every citizen, and very, very thinly. But the very few people who have a stake in the current system care about this more than anything, and they're very, very vigorous, and many of them well connected. So it's slow going, but we'll try to eat the elephant one bite at a time.
The House is about to vote today on a bill that would limit collective bargaining for all school employees to wages and benefits, and not just for teachers. What's your reaction to that?
Positive.
You support that?
Yeah. Thank you very much.